Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
So how did you, you were a cop for a long time. Why don't you tell us how you got started?
Actually, I wasn't in law enforcement. I was a firefighter paramedic. Yeah. For years, always was in the firearms industry. I owned my own business for 20 some years. Did this stuff on the side, and a while back, just got tired of the system, tired of the way things work. And the final straw was I did a post on Facebook, and the post they censored and said, "Well, you can't say that." I said, "Well, I'm not one of those you want to do that to, because if you put a mountain in front of me, I'm going to blow it up, find a way around it, or go through it." And went out and started writing articles for a bunch of national publications. Was miserable. You're talking about somebody that barely passed English. Now, reach a couple million people a month there, actually more than that, even on social media. And my whole goal is just a voice to be heard. I get a lot of messages from people that say, "Hey, you're, totally believe in what you're saying. I wish I could say it, but I can't because of work, or I can't because of my neighbor." And I'm not backing off. Somebody's got to say this for the rest of us. I've got a couple friends as of the Charlie Kirk thing now that aren't talking to me, which is surprising. Somebody's got to speak up, and people are afraid to do that. If we don't, nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same old thing it used to be. And you got that small, really minority making the biggest and most amount of noise. So, my mission was to kind of counter that. And one way I did it, as far as covering stories, most people go in an interview. One approach I take, I was down one of the NGOs, for example, in Texas for about 3 months undercover. I actually worked inside the NGOs. If you remember social media early last year, they had the reporters trying to get into the locked doors where these people were getting transferred through. I was actually in one of those facilities and saw it from the inside. And your perspective changes. You want to know your enemy. Don't like using that term, but know what you're up against. And there's no better way to do it than live it. So I did that. Done a lot of protesting with certain groups. And when I say protesting, literally protesting with them. Just want to see it from the other side. And it also is great for discussion. You're having a discussion, especially with somebody that's far left, and they'll go, "Well, you don't know," or, "How do you know this?" And I can whip out a picture of my phone, or pull out documents and say, "Hey, I was there. I've seen it firsthand." You're not hearing it from, I did an interview with somebody, or an interview of an interview, or I read it in a news story. And it goes one or two ways. It shuts the conversation down really quick because they don't have a counter for it, or it opens up a conversation, which was my whole goal. Right. Let's have a talk about it. We can have opposing views, and let's meet somewhere in the center, or try to at least. And that's how I ended up where I was at. And 10 years ago, you would ask me if I've been here, not my wildest dreams, and here I am.
So that brings up a question, and I don't know if you have the answer to this, but I actually saw an interview between, I always mispronounce his name, but it's Constantine. He's one of the hosts of Trigonometry, and he was talking with they had Tim Pool on as a guest, and they were saying, they were kind of making the argument that there's crazies on both the right and the left, and
absolutely,
that there's a propensity for both extremes to get really violent. And the interesting thing to me was when Tim Pool basically said, "Yeah, but the problem is when you have guests on that are right leaning, that are conservative, that focus more on the Constitution and individual rights, and more importantly, individual accountability." He said, you can have a conversation with people like that and actually have disagreements, but you can't do that on the left. If you have disagreements with them, they'll shut you down, and ultimately, if they can't shut you down, they'll get violent, which is exactly what happened with Charlie Kirk.
Yep.
What
I've seen
why is
it
that?
firsthand.
Say that
I,
again.
I said I've seen it firsthand.
Okay. So
It,
describe it.
you know, it, from what I can tell and from what I've experienced, the right seems to look at it a little bit more with logic. And I'm not saying all the right, like you said, we both have our extremes, but somebody that leans far left, we talk about getting in the echo chamber. They really get in that echo chamber, and you can you can search for information, find information to believe whatever you want to believe and support your topic. I can give you an example 2 weeks ago where after Charlie Kirk got shot, I had got up real early that morning and got to the kids' social media before everything was taken down. And there's a image of him in what looks like his dorm room. I can't remember the color shirt. It was a lighter color shirt. By the next day, that shirt had been photoshopped and said Trump across it. And there was two versions, one a red shirt and one a blue shirt. And a friend of mine had sent me that. Well, I say that loosely now because they haven't talked to me in a week and a half. And I replied right away to that and had the original photo. And when they had cropped it, they cropped it down to the point where they could just see his shirt. You could just see a little bit of the outline of what was behind it. And I had the full room photo and sent the room photo back. Well, that shut that down, but now we're on to the next subject. And it's like, okay. And they were literally attacking me. And if you read anything I put out there, I'm not one for an argument. I'm fact based. Here's the facts. If I don't know, I'm going to say I don't know. I'll stay in my lane. So now we're on to the next thing, same sort of situation, and it was emotional. This was by text, and you could tell though it was emotionally driven, and facts just did not matter. Same thing with some of the pro-Palestinian groups that have been inside. They facts don't matter. They're not going to listen to it. Some of their brochures, if you look at them, and you've looked at Marxism or looked at socialism and going back, they've basically rewritten that for the year 2025. I had one particular one I read, and I got to the back page, and that was during the DNC, and it occurred to me, like, wow, they've rewritten the playbook for modern age to get these people to suck in. And I equate this to the kids that don't have anything to do, or the kids that never got invited to anything in high school. You're talking about a group of individuals. Again, I'm not pointing fingers at everybody, but a large group of these individuals, this is their social life. This is what they do to get out of the house. Tesla is a perfect example of that when they were protesting Elon. This is their life. It's what they do. It's something to go around. You or I may go out to the bar and have a drink with friends. I go shooting. I go to festivals. For them, it's their social hour. And when that's your social hour and you've got like-minded people about you, they fire each other up and egg each other on. And that's where we're at. And I don't see that with the group on the right. We can disagree and then we go have a barbecue and have a drink, and it's yesterday's news.
Well, how do in your experience, how is it that people reach a point where they literally believe that violence, physical violence, is justified based on the circumstances of whatever they're looking at?
And that one, especially the last 3 weeks, I got to tell you, I'm trying to figure out. Broadview up here has made the national news. It's a nice facility, and typically I would go to these and try and blend into the crowd. That one has become enough of a disaster that I didn't even attempt it. Especially the last 3, maybe 4 weeks, it's really been ratcheted up a notch. And what's motivating them? I'm gonna be honest, I haven't figured it out yet. It's really gone to a whole new level. It was getting bad, kind of a slope like this. Now the bad is on a much steeper slope, and I don't know what's triggered it or what's been the final straw with them. Maybe it's just the point they've been inside that echo chamber so long that that's all they hear, and their anger and their hatred for anybody that doesn't agree with them is just boiled over. But I don't see it. I don't see it with a big group of them. I don't see it getting better soon. I really don't.
Well, the question is going to be, and it's kind of like what there was a quote that I read from President Trump. He basically said, those of you that are turning to violence, he said, you need to be careful because you will push the other side to violence. And I don't think they understand that, I don't know. What is there, 400 million guns in United States and like 2 trillion rounds of ammunition,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
And
Firearms. I'm a licensed firearm instructor in Illinois and in Texas, and I will say the last 3 to 4 weeks, I have seen a big uptick in private lessons. People that were borderline on renewals are now only get their renewals, and the people that are coming in do absolutely right. And one common thread above them is, I just want to be prepared. I'd rather just be left alone. I can't believe we've gotten to this point. And they're willing to talk. You can see it and you can hear it. And my classes are all small. The most I do is 5. So it helps to have, it's an open environment. People are more willing to talk and more willing to say why they're really there and what's really motivating them. And it's just the whole dynamics changed. And the people, Newsom and Pritzker and some of these governors and Johnson, they're fueling the fire. That's the one that's got me, and they know they're fueling the fire. I think, though, they're also fueling it because Pritzker and Newsom, they're going to make a presidential bid, and they're testing the waters. And I think they're trying to fire up their base. The thing is, they're firing up their base to a certain point that their base is now going nuts on some of these things. So somehow or another, it's got to be reined in, and it's got to start with them.
Well, there's also a common thread that goes between, the people that are looking at the latest shooter, even the Charlie Cook shooter, and this guy that shot up the ICE facility in Dallas the other day. I saw in the news just before we started this conversation that there's riots at an ICE facility in the I can't remember the town, but it's in Illinois,
Broadview,
and but it's in the middle of a residential area, and you got all this rioting going on. So, and standoff with the ICE agents, and like what they're doing or not. Basically, these guys, these ICE agents and these law enforcement officers all they're doing is upholding the law, which was written by the politicians.
Right.
And so, I understand in the past, like the past administration, they just chose not to enforce the law, which I don't know how that's actually legal, but this administration has chosen to enforce the law. But it's the law that's written. And if you don't like the law, don't take it out on the individual officer. He's just doing what he's being ordered to do. And it's nothing he's doing is unlawful. But instead of actually going to the politicians and saying, get up there and change this law, they are rioting against the actual law enforcement officers. And, these are just guys that are just trying to do their job. And I don't understand.
I don't know how much of this is made national news or not, but in the group that's protesting Broadview, you've had a couple city aldermen of Chicago, a couple state representatives. You've got the mayor of Evanston, who's running for Congress. You've got politicians in protesting with these people fueling the fire. West Chicago had, I don't remember if she's a state rep or a senator. She was chasing ICE down the street and saying, get out of my neighborhood, get out of my neighborhood. That is not helping matters. And these people have elected them and continue to elect them. And they get a foothold in a small area, and then they expound out from that small area. And you follow the money behind some of these campaigns. I was looking at one the other day, and we started following the money. One campaign had given money to 3 other campaigns, and in turn, they're swapping funds behind the scenes. So you think you're electing one person, you're electing them, but you're also helping to elect others, and it's a cascade effect.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know much about election law, but I didn't know you could actually share funds like that.
Yep, happens all the time.
Well, there's lots of things that happen in politics that most of
Yep.
us have no idea.
Yep. I got into a pretty good argument about somebody yesterday about something, a political consultant, and they said, well, there's no way that's happening. Well, we got into it too, and I know them. And they're like, there's no way that's happening. I'm like, no, it's happening. And got to the point where I actually had to pull up some information and show them and to prove. They're like, that's illegal. I'm like, well, welcome to Illinois. That's how it works. And they they couldn't believe it.
The amount of money that has literally been cycled from like Washington, D.C. through USAID into NGOs back to different, other NGOs that eventually go to 501c3 that are political campaigns. And it's just this laundering of the money and the funding that goes into all these people is just absolutely insane.
If you look at them, the way they're structured, there's no difference between NGO and a political campaign. None. They work the same. They launder money the same. They transfer money the same. It works identically. The only big difference between a lot of the NGOs or the nonprofits is the person or people who are in charge typically are taking home a pretty decent salary, and a lot of the money that's supposedly getting donated to those those nonprofits is going towards salary and overhead. It's not going to the end result. Really, people need to look at where they think they're donating their money to. And that goes for the right or the left. Look at where your money and what percentage is going to that cause versus what percentage is going in somebody's pocket.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous. But back to our original, we're going on all sorts of tangents, which is awesome, but I love it. I think a lot of this is driving what you were talking about is people are getting fed up, but most importantly, people are getting scared. I mean, they see a lot of this rioting. They see a lot of this crime. And like I said, I think there's a thread and a theme that kind of goes through the mentality of, I can actually attack an ICE officer for arresting an illegal alien who's a criminal. A lot of these guys are rapists and murderers. You would think even the most hardcore leftists would be okay with a murderer or a rapist being arrested. But for some reason, they have it in their minds that, especially this illegal alien class, they have to be protected. Well, on the same, and you tell me if this thread makes sense. On the same, it's just almost the same mentality that you're looking at this guy that's been arrested 64 times and for multiple violent felonies. For some reason, some of these politicians and judges and people think that person needs to be protected and kept in society for what? I mean, what asset, what contribution to society? A guy that's getting arrested 64 times has probably committed 1,000 crimes by then.
Right.
He's only been arrested 64 times.
Right. Because for every one that got arrested for or caught for, there was how many that don't. Same thing with somebody lies.
Yeah.
What's compounding the problem is our laws like the Safety Act. Even if the judge wants to do something, the prosecutors want to do something, they can't. And the laws here now, I would hope they're going to make some modifications, but it's here. And also the people that are for these laws don't realize how out of control it is. Since you would ask the question, I actually looked up and did a Google search this morning on is the Safety Act working? I put a few different search terms in. And a lot of the articles show that it is. If you go and you backtrace the articles where they're coming from, they're old data, the data's wrong. And one reason I chased it down, because you've got the sheriff of Kane County saying, hey, this isn't working. You've got the state's attorney say, hey, this isn't working. But now you've got some reporter with no credentials saying, oh, it's working. And that's what these people that are protesting are going off of. They're going off those articles, and they're wrong. It's false information. Unfortunately, there's way more false information out there than there is factual information. And I don't know how you stem that curve either. It's what's driving a lot of these people. They don't.
Well, part of it I have to wonder is how they define success. I mean, for some of these
Yeah.
people, I actually think that, you know, the only important thing is reducing the prison population.
Yeah, and the only important thing is they get their way. That's the truth. It's their way or there's no way, and there's no changing their thought process. Like we said before, you could put the facts right in front of them, and it's amazing. They'll deny it. They'll say there's no way that's true. There's no way that's happening, but yet you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Like I said, look at the red line downtown Chicago. It's a freaking death trap. There's stuff going on all the time. It's constant. And another thing you see is people they're just in their life. It's almost like a frog in boiling water on some of it. You put that frog in boiling water, as they say, and you turn up the water and doesn't realize it's boiling. What people have done, especially since COVID, is adjusted their lifestyle. They're like, okay, well, I just won't take the red line. I'll take the bus. Well, okay, I won't take the bus. I'll take an Uber. Okay, well, none of that's safe anymore. I'm just going to walk. Well, okay, it's too far to walk. I'm just going to stay in my neighborhood. Well, now I'm just going to stay home. And this has happened over a few years period, and a lot of them don't even realize what they've sunk into. And it's another trend that how do you reverse it?
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.